Pat Bowden is an international best-selling author, technologist, and entrepreneur. Pat is the author of the #1 international best-selling book, Get in the Boat, A Journey to Relevance, which addresses the #1 issue preventing companies from realizing the value of digital transformation. Pat was also the founder of Firefly Communications, which became wildly successful and grew into one of the largest consulting and education companies globally. After selling in 2012, he's been passionate about sharing his experience in business relevance and continuous improvement. Give it up for Pat Bowden.
Hey, can you guys hear me? Yeah? Oh, good. All right. Thank you. Appreciate it. All right. I love being with you guys. Thank you. Hey, I just need that. Yeah. Is it next? Yeah, okay. So Dallas is important to me. I live in Florida, but Dallas is important. My son-in-law worked with Julian at his last company. They moved from Dallas to Raleigh-Durham, my daughter and my son-in-law. And then my son works here. I have property in Carrollton, and my son is a data scientist here in Dallas. So Dallas is important to me. So, all right. So what is this? I asked this question in my book. It's relatively empirical. I don't think my survey was that biased. I asked 750 business people what they thought of IT. Who in the room is an IT person? I'm an IT person. Okay. I thought it would trail negatively. I did not realize it would be unanimous. I could not find one business person in the world that appreciated IT. Not for who we are. And I'm starting to say, well, what's wrong? What happened? It's not because we're not good at what we do. Sometimes maybe, but it's got to be bigger than that. It can't be just what we do. I've nailed it. I think now, it's a misalignment with the organizations we're in. Just so you guys know, I've been in IT before there was IT. Who's been in IT longer than 30 years? 30 years. Okay. If you're in IT 30 years or longer, me, it's almost 40. If you've been in that long, you know there was no IT 30 years ago. Remember that? So when I was at Lockheed here in Fort Worth, Lockheed, we didn't work in IT. There was no IT. We worked in engineering. When I was at Turner Broadcasting, after that job for Ted Turner, I worked in broadcast. I was an IT guy. I was a technologist, but I worked in broadcast. Then in 1990, Microsoft released Office. Nobel became very popular, and you saw this drive for efficiency in centralizing certain support functions. The one that they started, there's a couple. HR was one of those. IT was one of those that became centralized. The problem with that is it was done for the sake of efficiency. And guess what? Your senior leaders, I'm talking about CEO, they're not really driven by efficiency. They're not. Whether you know that or not, they're not. And so the problem is there became a disconnection. And so we went from decentralized IT technologists in the function to a centralized function, which became disconnected. And we became disconnected and isolated often. And I will tell you, in large organizations, and some of you probably are in those, the IT organizations are often isolated away from the rest of the organization. I'll give you one example. I bank at BB&T. I live in Florida, but I work in Charlotte a lot. And BB&T is now with their acquisition of SunTrust, they're going to move to Charlotte. BB&T is a great example. I told BB&T leadership, I'm a wealth client of theirs. I told them, you have the opportunity, and I really believe this, and I'm not sure they're going to be able to do it. But I said, you have the opportunity to be the Chick-fil-A of banking. I did believe it. I mean, who doesn't want to be Chick-fil-A? Those guys print money, right? So, but I think they're missing that. And here's what happened. They have a great bank. The people who do the bank are great. They have a great IT organization. But I know for a fact they're not connected at any level, which is crazy. You've got great people on both sides, and they don't communicate. And so that's what drove me to write this book. So when I say get in the boat, I mean, we are in a whitewater raft Those old people like me that started in this, our whitewater rapids were maybe class 1, class 2. It wasn't that hard, if we were being honest. I'm a mainframe system programmer. It wasn't that hard. We had time. We could think. You guys are living in class 5, class 6 rapids now. And so it's really imperative that we are not dragged behind in a rapid. If you guys, who here has ever done whitewater rafting? Can you imagine if you were in a raft and then there was a tow line to another raft behind you and you were going through a class 5 rapid? What do you think would happen to the second raft that's being towed behind? What do you think would happen? It'd be very dangerous. By the way, it would be incredibly reactive. Welcome to IT. It's an incredibly difficult job today, and it's incredibly reactive. Would you guys agree? Am I speaking to the choir? I hope I am. Okay, so we can solve this problem. So the key to being heard. This is about earning a right to sit at the table with your leadership. You don't get to do that. The problem our technologists have, I don't know why, but we often, I'm not saying you, but often technologists whine. When they want something, they'll whine to their leadership. Well, you won't give me blah. Like, dude, you do not get that. You get to earn it. So part of this is, how do you get a seat at the table? You need to be heard. We have to do things differently. We can't do the same thing the way we've been doing it. So let me tell you what this is. So I do use whitewater rafting. That is really the issue. So I'm writing my next book next year. So I'm going to release in summer of next year. And so now that hopefully people start getting in the boat, we start rowing together, right? So we do that in tandem. So I'm big on teaming and leadership. And I think we have in our industries, not just IT, but a lot of industries, we have some really real problems with leadership. And so that's my thing right now. But in my leadership, I'm thinking teaming. I think that's what I want to do. I want to lead great teams. So what happens? Can anybody tell me the symptom of irrelevance? We are not mostly relevant, which is crazy because we're critical, but yet we're not relevant to our business leaders. What are signs when that's occurring? What's a sign of that? I'll give you one, you give me another one. Dysfunctional communications. Okay, what's one you guys think of as sign of irrelevance? Anybody? Be brave.
When the business defines your budget.
Yeah. Without knowledge. One example of that, guys, is cloud first. Based on what? Maybe. But you can't just say that. What's your justification? Right? And then all these companies everywhere in the world, especially the United States, are flailing at that. That's an example of what you were talking about. Reactive versus proactive. If you look at most IT organizations, they're very reactive. They're almost, I'm not saying never, but rarely proactive. Here's an example of these. So no seat at the table, strategic misalignment, reactive versus proactive. They are reactive. Unfocused leadership, project failures, lack of plan, dysfunctional communications. So I'm, just so you know, after I left Turner, I went to a startup called, you may have heard of them, they're called Cisco Systems. So I was one of the first employees of a company called Cisco. So I was employee 175. And so what's interesting, talking about the dysfunctional communication, is you take an organization like that I worked in closely, the IT organization, and they're good, is not like that because there's a lack of communication between what they do. And I knew that because I worked in that organization so closely. Isn't that crazy when you have a good engineering organization and they're not respected? So it goes a bit, I know where I was going with this, sorry, I'm getting old. Where I was going with this is, according to Forbes, 84% of digital transformation projects are failing right now, 84. A friend of mine is the CIO of Cisco Americas. She was recently invited last year to a Harvard Business School program on digital transformation. She was out of the 100 people they picked, and the top people in the world, she was the only person in IT. Oh my God. They are trying to transform your business leaders are trying to transform their organization without IT. Dangerous. Dangerous. And it's almost completely based on lack of communications. So that's what I'm trying to solve here. So what's the solution for that? So I took the book, and I've kind of learned some things. I'm a lifetime learner. I did. By the way, I have my master's from the University of Texas Arlington here in Dallas. At the same time, I did a master's in divinity at Southwestern here in Fort Worth. And so I have a big heritage here. But by the way, why? Why would you do that, Pat? Because everything's about death and taxes. No, I'm just kidding. So the follow-on to the book has been this concept of the 8 principles of relevance. And so I'm going to go through a couple of these. Now, I could do this for this week alone. Yesterday, I did a 5-hour session on this. We're going to do a lighter touch on this. But I want you to kind of sense that there is a plan, there is a strategy to be able to actually be more effective. So we're going to start with the connect the dots, and then we'll start and just move from there. So, who in the room likes coffee? You like coffee? Okay, you like coffee. Okay, why? Why do you? Give me one word.
Helps me wake up in the morning.
Okay, he needs to be wake up. He needs a little cocaine, a little coffee, whatever it takes. At the end of the day, a lot of Americans use coffee as a tool. Their job to be done is wake up. Understanding what matters really matters. Okay, the experience matters. The experience matters. I had this general come up to me when I was at Lockheed here years ago. I'm literally in front of a mainframe terminal. This guy comes up to me. We see a lot of 04, right? If you know military, if you guys have military at all, we see a lot of lieutenant colonels and colonels. We don't see many generals. So this, I think it was 06, but maybe 07, came up behind me and said, son, I said, Dad? He says, what do you do? I said, he sees me in front of a mainframe terminal, right? I said, sir, I build military aircraft. He says, son, you're going to go a long way. What was he saying? He was saying, I understood my purpose. I knew exactly what I did. By the way, sitting next to me was an MIT PhD grad in aeronautics. Neither one of us actually built military aircraft. Some little old lady in Fort Worth, Texas, built military aircraft, right? But we knew because the person sitting right next to me was a test pilot. And the things we built, that guy was going to fly. And the year before I got to Lockheed, GD at the time, the test pilot died. So we knew what we do matters. Understanding the purpose of what you do. If you perceive or your team perceives that they do this for a living, you're disconnected. Understand why you do what you do. My friends here at Interstate Battery, right? What do you guys do? You don't do IT. You guys help people make sure they have the batteries, and batteries are going to become more and more important in our society, right? I mow my yard with a battery mower. So a battery's important. And then when we have those batteries that can give me enough torque to get. Now I don't have much land. I'm in Florida, man, right? I got a quarter acre, but I'm good. I can do it. So what our problem in technology we often have is we focus on the beam, and we don't focus on the experience. So let me give you an example of this. Every day I'm home in Florida, I make coffee. I do not drink coffee. So why do I make coffee? Wife. I've been married 33 years. I will tell you this, I am like the best, when it comes to coffee, I'm like the best IT person in the world. Because you think about it, guys, you guys do not, in your customers, the companies you work, you don't drink the coffee. You're not the reason IT exists in your company, correct? You're not the reason. So I am the perfect example. I do the whole thing, guys. I get the right beans. I grind the beans. I have a French press. I get the right filtered water. Man, I do lattes. What? It's understanding why. Her need is chemical balance, right? Some people are like that. So she gets a little coffee in the morning. She gets a little bit more than a little bit, but okay. And she gets some wine at night, and then she's good, right? For me, that doesn't affect me that way. And I don't like the taste of coffee, but some people do. If you go in some societies, coffee is a social thing. It's how we as families meet. I just did a thing last couple months ago in Latin America. And when I asked them about coffee, it is a social ritual rite. It's what they do to share time together, right? Understand why you exist. Understand it. Michael Porter out of Harvard talks a lot about value chaining, which is what this is. Porter is an academic from Harvard, and he's incredibly hard to understand. He's so hard to understand. He is the number one strategist in the world today. The dean of the Harvard Business School wrote a book called Understanding Porter. So read that one. Porter, but if you do any business strategy, and I do mostly business strategy today, Porter has some great knowledge in the value chaining component of this. And what I spend most of my time today, I spend a lot of time trying to connect this experience to this right here, the tangible things we do. You can't do it. What's the missing element, in my opinion, and I just started a company this week based on this called Measured Up, but I've been doing this for a while. What we've been missing in the IT industry is process. We're very bad at that, specifically connecting the process of what we do to the business process itself. So Measure Up is going to be all about BPO in the IT space. How do you, using lean technologies and design thinking. And so our whole concept, and so I've 3 years ago, I went back to school and got a black belt in Six Sigma Lean because I knew that was the missing element. You can't connect the things we do directly to the business outcome. You just can't, sorry. You have to connect it to the business process. So the question for the people in this room, when you're working in IT, do you know when you apply technology, do you know the impact of your business process? Are you measuring that? Do you know what would happen if you did? You would bridge the gap between you and the business like that. Does that make sense? Whoa, don't know what that is. Am I doing something? All right. You want me to back away from you? You want me to go, okay, right here? Okay, I'll talk right here. No, smart. All right, so what I've done is I write a lot. And what you guys got to start doing is reading a little more, right, when we do this. And you know, you talked about Warren Buffett, I'm a fanboy of Warren's, right? He reads a lot, 6 hours a day. And so what I do is I write a lot. And so every month I'm publishing an article. And this middle one, this is provocative. So first of all, I write narratives, and nobody in IT writes narratives. The second thing is I'm poking the bear. I do believe the way we perceive cloud today in technology, and sometimes being driven by the business, is a mistake. And I am poking the bear when it comes to this. So this lost in the fog is, I believe a lot of customers in the United States today are lost when it comes to cloud because they're trying to do lift and shift and trying to move everything to the cloud. Well, why? What's your value? And so I poke the bear, and I'm not afraid of poking bears. So if you guys want to get a chance, Pat Bowden, Lost in the Fog, it'll change your life. Give me your feedback on that. But I am writing provocatively, intentionally. By the way, the one on the left here, the collaboration, think about this. The tools you use to collaborate, this is the poke of the bear. The tools you use to collaborate, the performance of those tools, even though you don't make those tools, you tell your business leaders, the perception of those tools by their customers, whether they're good or bad, whatever that perception is them. If your tools suck, that is you. Wow. It's true. If you're using WebEx or Zoom or whatever else, and the experience of your customer is terrible with that tool, and you're thinking, it's cheap, guess what? They perceive your company as that tool. And that's true. It's scary as hell, because that's true. Do you really want to piss off all your customers? I don't think you do. So what else? By the way, on that one, just understand this last one, understand purpose. That's really the key here. This one right here is another one, and I have, 10 minutes? 15 minutes. let me be simple on this. We spend most of our time hiring people based on their I-shaped skills. I-shaped means the letter I, and that's the deep domain expertise. I don't care what you think you do or what you do. It could be in HR, it could be in IT, it does not matter. You have deep domain. Some of us have multiple areas of deep domain. I am a CPA. My first career was accounting at Ernst & Ernst. Yes, there was an Ernst & Ernst before E&Y. So I still have a massively deep background in finance. My second career was engineering. I'm a double CCIE. I've been one for 20 years. I have a very deep background when it comes to engineering, specifically in mainframe systems and networking. What else? Now I have expertise in process. As you build this out, the problem is we always focus on the I-shaped. What's your expertise? The problem with that, so we will always spend the majority of our time refining our deep domain expertise. But here's what you need to hear. This is the scary part. Your deep domain expertise will never, ever make you relevant. It's table stakes. Your team's deep domain, your business don't give a shit about it. Think about it. They only know it's not there when you're not performing. That's the only time that matters. Oh, you're not showing up. The only thing that actually matters is the cross-domain expertise. So if you think about it, you're a great system programmer. If you can't communicate what you know, then you have a problem. So you need to spend the majority of your time refining your skills, but you need to spend some time, you need to invest sometimes in cross-domain expertise. We need to hire T-shaped people. We need to hire T-shaped people. Because right now we're hiring people that just have certain expertise. Who gives a shit? I, as a business leader, don't care. Thanks. I only know about it when you're not doing something. Does that make sense? I is table stakes. T is what makes you relevant. Hopefully that makes sense. And fortunately for you guys, I've written an article on this with ATD. And so this is all about get the most out of your hires. Stop only hiring I-shape. Get some T's in your organization that will have impact to your company, right? So good news is there are articles and stuff that will explain this. So this is through, this is to an HR audience. It doesn't matter, guys. All support functions have the same problems when it comes to, I was with this number 2 IT person in the state of North Carolina 2 days ago. She goes on the board. She's great. She's a smart lady. And she goes on the board and says, the 2 things I care about most is culture and process. I don't have many conversations like that. He says, that's my problem. I said, we can solve those. So it's interesting when you understand what matters, and that's the cross domain, that's the T, that's the bar across the T. Okay, tell a better story. By the way, what does that mean? If you're a great engineer, understand communications matters. Psychology matters. I have a friend of mine that was, until he retired, he was a CIO of Cisco for 25 years. And he was actually wrote the preface of this book. And so he had one requirement when he was at Cisco, one of his engineers got in the elevator with Chambers, John Chambers, the CEO of Cisco. He wanted that to be a relevant conversation for 45 seconds. And you think, now John's a very friendly guy if you've ever met Chambers. He's an extremely gregarious guy. So he talked to anybody, right? So you know how that would normally work, right? He comes in, says, hey, Cornelius, how are you? What do you do? Cornelius being the regular engineer, sir, I do networking. And so what are you doing? Oh, I'm working in SD-WAN, blah, 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 blah. And like, oh my God, I am so sorry I asked you anything. But what if the conversation was like this? I said, what do you do? He goes, well, Mr. Chambers or John, whatever. So what I do is I do networking. I provide communications. And if I do my job right today, your new sales office in New York City will be operational tomorrow. That's what I do. What? I will tell you, and this is true, money would rain down from heaven if CEOs only heard that kind of shit from IT people. They do not hear that from IT. You know I'm right. We whine. Stop whining. It's so much better to be constructive and say, we can either do this or not do this. I have no dog in that hunt. You want to do this? You got to do this. If you want to do that, we have to do this. If you don't want to do that, then we don't have to do it. I have no dog in the hunt. CEOs will be like, yeah. That's how I communicate. You want to make an investment? Make an investment. I'll tell you the goods, the pros and cons, but you know what? If you're not going to make it, I don't care. You either care about your company or you don't, right? All right. Why do we often talk about, so what do you do, Randall?
I change kids' lives.
Oh, there you go. And so what part do you play in that?
We build products for students that are struggling with reading and math.
Okay, cool. So do you manage a group that does that, or?
I do.
Okay. Do you have engineers that work for you, or?
I do.
Okay. Do any of them ever say things like, this doesn't work, or anything like complaining about certain things?
Oh, yeah.
And what would they complain about? Just give me one example of something complaining. One example.
Cycle times are too long or cycle times are too short.
Oh my God. Think about that. That is such a symptom, right? Cycle time, and I would say, what? Do I care? Why do I care? We chase symptoms all the time and rarely deal with root cause. And the reason why is because support functions like HR and IT and others are disconnected from the core functions. Now, smaller companies, we can embrace that because we are all in the same room together, right? But in large companies, if you work for Pepsi here in Dallas, I don't know if you guys do, they don't fix those easy. They got freaking silos that are freaking massive, right? So the issue is the further you're away from the core for a commercial organization, meaning one that's profit and loss focus, is the customer, and yours would be the student or the parent. At the end of the day, the further you're away from that core element, the further you're away from actually understanding root cause. So we talk in symptoms. So what do you do to get these guys not to do that? There's a lean principle called the 5 whys. If somebody like that told me cycle time's a problem, I would say, what do you mean? Why? Why is that a problem? It says something, other BS thing. All right, why? And then it's probably an issue. But I finally get to the thing that I can do something about. Does that make sense? Do yourself a favor, ask why more. Make sense? Okay. I wrote an article on that one. This is the support function. This is one that's done this year. It's a great one. By the way, these are all different support functions. This one's L&D. Does not matter. You guys have the same problems, right? You got the same, when it comes to communications, you got the same exact issues. So this is an example of that. All right, 5 whys. That was that. Okay, so here's the next one. Every organization is built into 3 parts. This directly comes from the DoD. Strategists, operators, tactical. That's it. A strategist is responsible for vision, culture, and focus. So who's Interstate Battery? How many people in that company? The whole company? 1,500. How many people in that company set the vision, culture, and focus for the entire organization? Do not tell me 10%. Oh, 3, 4 human beings. Guys, those are the strategists. And when we try to communicate, we say, we've got to go there. Why do you go there? Their job is to do vision, culture, and focus and get the hell out of the way. That's the job of a CEO. When I just started working for this company in North Carolina, I told the CEO, this is your job. Do that, and then get out of my way. You're in my way. Move. I can do that because our own company's bigger than his company, right? That's what they do. I call those people green folks. I use colors. It allows me to communicate more effectively shorthand. The operators are the people who do execute on the vision of the organization. If you are a leader in technology, your job is to be the middle one. You're an operator. Now you should have a foot in the strategy, Understand what they're doing. You should have a thumb in the tactical, because you don't want people to lie to you, because they do that. And then your job is to execute. Now, what are the middle people? They're blue to me. And they do three things: people, process, and technology. So you will know you're talking to a blue person when all they want to talk about is how do we refine our business processes. And they're in technology and they don't talk about that, they're absolutely tactical, which I call red. So if you're a leader in IT in this room, my suggestion is you don't play the tactical role. Move up one level and start caring about business process. Does that make sense? Because your business leaders will respect you more, because that's the thing they care about. Make sense? Tactical, somebody has to do the tactical. The red people are important. But if you're a leader in technology and you're that person, you better be a small company, right? Because if you're in a big company, you got a problem. All right, so how do you do this? There's a structural way. It's in this book. It tells you how to do it. It says you guys look into this. Okay, next one. I got 5 minutes? All right. This is the fifth principle, and it goes with the sixth principle as we go. This is where the gravy. So what do the green people care about? Like, he's a CEO of a company. What does he care about? I know exactly what he cares about, because I do this for a living, right? Number one thing, if I'm talking to a company, first thing I ask is, why do you exist? What's your value to the marketplace? Because if you don't have a value to the marketplace, why are you here? So the first thing you do is you say, why is your value? Lego's been around 77 years in 2002, and they had lost their way. They had a new CEO come in named Jürgen Vig, and he actually set them back on the path. And he said, we need to understand why we exist. And what we do is we teach children problem-solving skills. That's the only thing we do. If you do that for a living, you will not make that glass, right? You will have very specific things you do. Then you figure out who cares about why you exist. And that would be your beneficiary if you're public sector in here, or it'd be your customer. And then how do you get there? How do you find a way to build a relationship to that target? How do you sustain relationships with that target? All of that, if you're in a commercial organization, lends to revenue. If you're in public sector, that lends to appropriations. And immediately I know I have everything about your top line of your business. Done. Now I know what your business does. And now you know what your business leaders are thinking about. Then on the bottom side of that, which is capabilities, is resources, whether they're internal or external, and activities, whether they're process or policy. All of those things cost money. In public sector, we would call that budget. In commercial, we would call that cost. You do the differential between revenue and cost. In a commercial, that's P&L. Got it so far? Does anybody know what the value, who is in a commercial organization, meaning one that makes money? Okay, who's in public sector in here? Anybody? Okay, so everybody's in commercial. What's the number one KPI on the business side of the house that will dictate to the market what's your value? Does anybody know what it is? There's one number that tells you what your value is to the marketplace. It's gross margin. Your gross margin will dictate exactly your value to the marketplace. And by the way, there is, and I'll tell you later if you want to know, there is no direct correlation between P&L and gross margin. As a CPA, like most people don't get that. There is no direct correlation because of a thing called overhead. So at the end of the day, the key here is to understand what drives the value of the organization, what's the value creation process, and how do you plug in as a technologist? Because are you achieving higher margins or not? Because if you're not, well, you're not helping value create in the organization. That's the fifth one. So what comes out of this are the goals, the initiatives, the objectives, the projects of an organization. So I can tell you, by the way, and the risk. So the risk is what changes this, which becomes a change, which becomes the goal. So if I ask a VP of sales, what is your goal? And he says increase revenue. And I proceed to say, no shit. All right, let's talk about what your goal is, right? Because every VP of sales wants to increase revenue. That's what they do. So how do you do that? What's the initiatives you're going to do? Are they going to be smart, specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, time-based? So that's the kind of stuff we're talking about. So what comes out of that, so doing this effectively, if you guys need help, it's in here. That's what I do. I do it fast too. Then it comes what Google calls OKR, understanding what we just talked about. So plugging in and value chaining your success into that risk, goals, initiatives, objectives, projects, widgets, whatever the hell you do, and connecting those all together. That's the key, okay? If you can do that, now you can communicate with anybody in your organization. You say, what do you do? Well, this is what I do. You said in your 10K, section 1A, that your whole purpose is to be cyber safe. So your goal this year is to do that. So here's your goal. Your initiative is within the next quarter, we're gonna reduce cyber security threats by 95%. Okay, other things you're gonna say you're gonna do. Then this is why we do this, this is why we do this, and you can map it out to the CEO and say, all right, this is why we're doing it. We need your money. If we're gonna do this, we need your money. You wanna reduce the risk? You wanna reduce the risk of the street? That's how you do it. We don't communicate that way. We should, okay? What else? Okay, I'm on last two. Who in the room, if I said this to you as a senior IT leader, what would your reaction? I'm gonna call on you, okay? I can actually measure the impact of your technology spend today on your business. And I can actually show you a number that shows you if you are measurably impacting that in a positive or negative way against your business today. Would that be useful? Are you doing that right now systematically? That's what this is. So what I've done is I've taken lean concepts called value streaming and actually can prove the impact of digital transformation across the organization. I was just recently in South Carolina with a financial institution. I said that to them. I said, well, for loan origination, we're just adopted DocuSign. Are you measuring the impact of that? No. I said, well, you better. And I said, so they just put a new application out for payment services. Are you measuring the impact? Well, people are using it. Oh, yeah, okay. Is that measuring impact? That may be one part, but it's not enough. So that's the kind of stuff you guys got to start thinking about. If you want to have impact to the organization, you got to start thinking about the things they care about, which is the business process. That makes sense? Okay. The last one is this one. Ask me a question, Julian. I'm gonna get you to ask me a question. Here we go. Ask me what keeps me up at night. Ask that.
Pat, what keeps you up at night?
Hey, Julian, thanks for asking me that.
Anytime, man.
I piss a lot. Does that help? That's how we ask questions. We're not asking questions. Not him. I set him up. But we do not ask questions that are asking necessarily the right thing. I'll give you one question that will change your life. I did this with a vendor that had been on this one account, the IRS, for 20 years. Good friends. The seller was good friends with their customer. 20 years. I told them this one thing. I said, use this. I said, it'll change your life. He said, okay, I'll try it. 20 years this guy knew his customer. And this is the question. It's an example of kind of questions. What's a good day for you? What's a good day? If you went to your business leader and said, explain to me what's a good day. That's doing two things. First of all, it's showing interest. It's showing empathy. All these things. And if they're green strategists, blue operators, they will actually tell you what the win is. They'll tell you their gain. Now, if they're tactical, everything's pain. That's a gain question, right? You should be telling you what's good day. There's like, oh, good day is not when they're beating me up, right? We have to improve the way we communicate. So here's a couple of tricks. BI&I, be interested, not interesting. Nobody cares until they do. Be interested, not interesting. The next one is pattern interrupts. I got to tell you this example so you'll get it. Do this culturally within your organization and within the culture you live in. I'm in Jersey City, New Jersey in 2005. I'm with the senior architect of Lehman Brothers. I'm doing a training class. The guy tells me, this is the #1 technologist at Lehman Brothers in 2005. He says, you know what? You're just going to tell me whatever the hell Cisco told you to tell me. I said, dude, now remember, for 23 years I had long hair. So I'm looking like a dude, right? Hippie dude, right? And I said, 20 years I haven't lost my credibility. It's not going to happen today. So you can, and I said it exactly like this. You either can shut the hell up or get the hell out. He's like, I'm in. Seriously, we need to poke the bear. We need to start doing pattern interrupts and do it culturally. We're in Texas. Use one that would hear, dog in the hunt. Use something that's going to actually resonate. But you can't be boring. Boring is the worst thing. That's what they expect from you. Don't be the expected. I mean, nobody's going to give a shit if you're boring. Probe, poke, be provocative. Does that make sense? Communicate better. Elevate your communications. I gave you a couple of things. If you adopt any of those things, change your life. And by the way, another good question is, what's a bad day, right? But that's the first one nobody asked. You good? Okay. Julian.
Ladies and gentlemen, give a hand for Pat Bowden. So we actually have about 10 minutes for Q&A. And again, this is much less about us and us being able to be of service to you guys. So who has the first question?
What's a good day? No, do that one. Come on, guys, be brave. Bring it.
All right, I'll go. You brought up in your presentation that you're well-read.
I am well-read. Doesn't mean...
Thompson is the most well-read individual I've ever met.
Yeah.
So he does exercises with us, and he asked us to read a bunch of books over the last couple of years to make sure we're continuing to maintain focus on culture and change, right? We read the 5 dysfunctions of a team, okay? You actually brought that up in the beginning of one of the symptoms of relevance is dysfunctional communication.
Correct.
So the pyramid, as you know, since
Correct.
you just raised the roof, right? The ultimate goal is results, and then there's accountability and communication and conflict, but the biggest
Trust.
one that everybody has is trust. So how do you bridge the gap between trust and results with operations in IT?
Do what you say. Do what you say. Be a man of your word. I will tell you right now, most people in our society are not. I go to this company that I'm a CTO of now in North Carolina. We have some really good talent. Now remember, I had Firefly. I had 500 of the top engineers in the world, right? So I'm not scared of talent. I have no issue with that. I've had 250 CCIEs, right? We had nobody had that. But this new one I've got, I own all the pre-sales engineering, right? So we have this guy that's extremely talented in storage and infrastructure stuff. And so but he's incredibly cynical, right? By the way, if you guys, so this is a feedback. Skepticism is fine. Cynicism is not fine. Cynical behavior kills. So I went to him and I started talking to him. I'm like, what's going on? And all the leadership in the organization are scared of him. I'm like, I ain't scared of nobody, right? So I started talking to him, and I said, I start to find out that it's a trust issue. We weren't people of our word. I said, dude, I will never tell you anything that I'm not going to go do. And about 6 weeks ago, I was in Columbia. He's in South Carolina, and I was, we had this conversation. I said, 2 hours at Starbucks, and I said, there will be a day that you're not cynical with me. I'm a direct guy. So there will be a day that'll happen. And about 2 weeks ago, he calls me, Pat, because I changed the entire structure of the engineering and how it works. And he goes, Pat, your stuff's working amazingly well, and everybody's doing their job. Because our job as leaders are not to get engaged in the day-to-day. You're not supposed to be in the day-to-day. I am not. I don't even do email. Because I don't do. At Firefly, I stopped email altogether. I don't take email. I have an EA. They'll do whatever. If something's important, they'll get it to me. So I told them, never send me an email. In fact, never send me a CC email, ever. I don't need your CYA. Don't ever send me a CC email. And so the guy, I said, we had a 30-minute conversation at the end. He goes, I said, you weren't cynical to me this entire call. For 5 months. He goes, I said, I know you're a man of your word. So the issue with trust is a lot of the leadership is not doing their work. They're not doing the right thing. And here's the bigger issue. They don't understand motivation. Most people in our space are very confused with people, and they think people are driven by money. Nobody in STEM is driven by money. Science, technology, engineering, mathematics are not driven by money. We use it because we're bad at management. So we pay money because we think that will solve the problem. It's true. That's what's happening. So guys, I know that. By the way, even on the sales side, they're only driven by money if they're sociopaths. I mean, like number one, that's the only people that are driven that way. So does anybody know what the number one motivator is to do for anybody? What's the number one motivator? No. And by the way, I would say that I would never get autonomy without guardrails. We talked about that with these guys earlier. Fulfillment, but that's a result. So what drives fulfillment? By the way, purpose is part of that. Here's the number one motivator according to BB&T. I don't know where they got their stats. Anyway, was being specific, saying specific thank yous. I am incredibly conscientious of being able to be very specific and say, thank you for this. And there is no better motivator. And it's crazy we don't do it because it's the cheapest thing we could do. And we don't. Our cultures do not do that. I don't know if we think we're weak by saying thank you or we're just stupid, but I'm very conscientious about saying thank you, but I am never saying that generically. You did this, thank you for that. I will never tell you thank you if I don't know what I'm talking about. So does that help? So trust is because we are men and women of our word. Good? Okay. By the way, first book was spearheaded by, so the guy we're talking about is Patrick Lencioni, my favorite author in the business world. Lencioni's, the book that sprung my book was the 3 signs of a miserable job, which are anonymity. You must know the people you work with or you'll be unfulfilled. The second one is immeasurability. You must be able to measure what you do on a daily, weekly basis. I do measurements of people not because I'm trying to hold them accountable. I don't need to hold them accountable. I want them to be happier human beings. Motivation matters. Third is irrelevance. You're not relevant because of what you do. You're relevant because of who you impact. Does that make sense? So my next book will be based off the one you just brought up. Good?
Thank you, David Jones. And we have time for one more quick question. Who's got one final burning question they'd like to ask Pat?
Was I that boring?
Pat, what would you say would be the cost to our respective organizations if we do not change the way that we communicate?
So the cost to us, let's make it personal first. Cost is us. Right now, what's happening in IT, we'll talk about the organizations in a minute. What's happening to us? What we have happening right now is whack-a-mole. I cannot tell you how many people approach senior leadership in IT and they are whacked because they are not prepared. So it's like this table right here, and you have these holes in the table, right? And this person gets to that, like that one level when they're exposed. Like at the lower level, you're not exposed. So you're good, and you can be stupid and all that other stuff, right? But when you hit that level and they know what you're doing then, oh my God, they are gonna whack you if you're exposed. That I cannot tell you how many, and I'm not exaggerating numbers. I cannot tell you how many thousands of people I know that have been fired. Thousands. And what's crazy is I don't think they know why they were fired. Dude, it was you. It was you. You didn't change. You were doing the same stupid things you were doing when you were under the table. Does that make sense? So that's the problem for the individual. If you want to grow in leadership in your organization, you better figure what I'm talking about right now, because as soon as you're exposed, you will be whacked and you will be fired. And I know people here in this town that make VP of infrastructure, CIO, and they get whacked. And they go, well, what happened? Well, my fault. Of course it was your fault. The CEO did not respect you. The CEO did not think they didn't perceive you were on their boat. You were not in the front boat, and guess what? You're gone. So what does it do to their organization? The organization will be dysfunctional communication is the number one killer to getting people misaligned. What you want, so this is a race. We all have parts in the race. If you do a relay, say you do a 400-meter relay, 100 meters across the track for each one. If one person does a shitty job, you will lose the race. We have to run together. And that's the problem. So the organizations right now are suffering because the people in the business are trying to solve the problems without you. And guess what? They don't know what they're doing. It doesn't mean that they're stupid. They're very smart. but they just don't know enough of the context of what, somebody like me, 40 years in this business, has, and says, yeah, I did that, and that doesn't work because of this. So they don't have that knowledge or that contextual understanding. Does that make sense? So the problem is that organizations will suffer. Their value, which is demonstrated in commercial organizations by gross margins, will suffer because we are not playing ball, because we're not in the boat. Does that make sense, Julian? Thank you.
Thank you, Pat. This has been absolutely amazing. If you could tell us all how to connect with you, find you on social, check out the book, if you tell us this information, Pat.
Yep. This right here, by the way, I'm best in LinkedIn. I don't know if that's it. Yeah, there you go. That's it. If you are an organization, you want a bulk books, come to me directly. If you want to buy one, just go to Amazon. What I'm telling you is Amazon pays me less. So if you need a bulk, just do it. I am very shocked, by the way, that the book has resonated so well. I will tell you, I will give specific thanks to my wife, who's my final editor on everything I do. She's incredibly good, and so the book is those that have read it, it's an easy read, and it's an easy read because of her. So I'll give her credit to that. And by the way, who have you read it?
A third of it. Yes, to be honest, yes, a third of it, yeah.
Hold people accountable. So at the end of the day, what you'll find, guys, the front end of this is like in thirds, right? So the first third is like the problem. The second third are the tools I talked about here, okay? And the last third is about communications. How do you tell a better story that you will be heard? Make sense? Is that good? And this is how you get me, but LinkedIn is best if you guys want to connect. That's my best way of communicating.
Awesome. Let's have a big round of applause for Pat Bowden.